we'll have like today's and Monday's class for JavaScript. There are certain things that we got to discuss. So today we'll be like looking into, the OOPS concept, like the inheritance code and the prototype code that was not really working in the last class. And then we'll be gonna looking into document object manipulation and document object model and browser object model manipulations. So those two are like pretty important, from a project perspective, I would say. And then we have like three topics: callbacks, promises, async, and await. So these three topics are like pretty important when it comes to, Web3 project implementation when we are writing deployment scripts and stuff. And we'll try looking into some of the examples so that, you guys can figure out if you're able to understand JavaScript code written in any project. So that's how you can assess your understanding. It might be it might be a little difficult for some of you to like write the code. I mean, I think like a lot of you guys will have that issue because you haven't have that kind of practice. But if you're able to understand a particular piece of code by looking at it, you definitely can figure out, and with the syntaxes, and the next time you're trying to write something similar, you'll be able to do it quite easily. There are a few Web3 related JavaScript libraries, web3.js, ether.js, and stuff that we got to discuss. So we might like take web3.js, ether.js during once we are talking about Web3 or Solidity in general. So even that time, that will be there. So we'll start today's class. As of now, we have 37 participants. Okay. Um, so last class we were talking about, Anika, you've raised hand. Is there something that you wanna say? Even Shweta has raised. Okay, so I was gonna ask a few of you to give me a brief about the previous class. Discuss everything that we studied in the last class. Also try, including the code segment in your discussion so that, we can have like a quick recap. I don't know if you guys tried your hands on when it comes to code or not. So I'll try putting the code today in the chat so that you can implement it along with me. And then we'll be doing a quick discussion on how did the calculator project go for you guys. Like you can show me screenshots in the chat because obviously you won't be able to present the screen. So I like to see like a project or two and ask if you guys had any issues implementing it and stuff. If you need more time for the implementation or you feel that you're stuck or whatever, so we'll do a discussion on that and then we'll go forward with the class. So anybody who wants to give the brief about previous class? Three participants. Okay. Chinmay. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
last class, we have discussed about the objects creation by using object literal notation and new keyword, and also accessing the object properties with the dot operator and also the square braces. And we have also discussed about the events like on mouse move, on focus, etc. And also we have discussed the calculator project, etc. That's all,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am.
Okay. Anybody else who wants to add something? If yeah, Soumya, you can speak if you have anything new to add.
Yes, ma'am, we have discussed about objects, ma'am, and then we have seen class and then object, ma'am. we have seen how to access the proper loop, foreign loop. So we have also
Yeah.
discussed overview of this keyword, ma'am, how to use this keyword. And then we went to the events class. So using on click and some of the mouse over event like that. Some of the events we have discussed, ma'am. And then the assignment we have discussed this calculator and brief of the calculator, like how we gonna
Okay. So, does nobody remember that we discussed the class creation and then we talked about constructors as well? Like both of you didn't mention that, right?
Yes,
Does
ma'am, we
nobody
discussed
remember?
about object-oriented programming principles and
Mm-hmm.
how to create classes using with and without constructors. And we
Mm-hmm.
discussed about prototypes.
Yeah. Yeah. So prototypes was the last topic where we actually stopped the class because the code was not running. So you definitely shouldn't forget that we discussed something related to class and how we created the class and stuff. It's not something that you should definitely forget because it's pretty important. So we'll go through the class, the constructor thing very quickly, and then we'll move on to prototypes and inheritance and stuff. Because last class we already discussed the major OOPS concept in terms of definition, and we're gonna see like a few implementation because we've already talked about how classes work, how objects work, and stuff, right? So just present. One second. Let's start the. So. Hmm. Okay, yeah, this is working now. Okay, so one thing that I would like to stress on is that once you guys are doing like multiple code, okay, suppose you're like just like you guys can see my file, right? So right now you can see the Google screen, Chrome screen, right? Now you can see the HTML file, right? So what I was saying was when you're writing like multiple pieces of code into one file, no, while you're experimenting with stuffs or learning new stuffs, not like doing a proper project or something, always make sure that your JavaScript file is compatible with your HTML file. Otherwise, it will throw a lot of errors and it won't run. That is what was happening with the prototype code because I have like multiple HTML piece of code that's running separately for certain JavaScript code. It always, goes the other way, and some of those files won't run. So this is something that we discussed in the last class as well. So we were creating a class called session form, and then we were creating these methods or objects, whatever you can say, submit, cancel, fill, right? And then we were creating these individual objects for these class methods, like let's Neha form is equals to new session form. So give the class name and you create a form for Sneha. And then once you have to call these methods here, you pass on the parameters. So suppose Phil has these two arguments, given name, session name. So you put in those values and you try creating that form, right? Similarly, we did it for Reva. We filled the form, right? And these are the methods that we're trying to call: submit, 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 and cancel. So every time we do that, there has to be like an alert, right? So I'll show you how it goes in the browser. Yeah. So every time your form is submitted with whatever values it is, you will get that alert. It depends on whether you're using a console.log or you're directly using alert, whatever function that you're using, it will show you accordingly. If you would have been using a console.log, which we saw in the last class, you will see that output in the terminal, right? So, okay, submitted for session and is cancelled for the session. So this was like a quick recap about the class thing. We saw the similar thing for constructor, right? As you can see, I've written this constructor example, and we were seeing that every time a new object for a particular class is created, the constructor will be called, right? So, okay, some people are sending messages. So once you're talking about constructors, you've seen that every time a new object is created, constructor automatically gets invoked. Yeah. So one way to see it was that you call a constructor, you don't like, you're not passing any parameters or nothing, and you just put a print statement as console.log constructor is called. So every time you will see that every time an object is created, even that, because the constructor is being called automatically, it is invoked automatically, the particular statement will be printed again and again. So that is a way how you can, see it working, whatever we talk about constructors theoretically, right? And I was telling you that constructor can have arguments, it can also go without arguments, there's given name, session name, that we've passed as arguments, and we see that still, things work in the similar manner. For the this keyword, we've always talked that wherever we are talking about object, we want to reference a particular object, a global object, whatever, this keyword is definitely used. So this example was wholly on, constructor based. So today, for today's class, we'll be starting with prototype. Okay. Can more than one alert called at one time? No, no. More than see, it's about getting displayed, right? So you can't like call. You'll have to wait. See, this is why we focus on JavaScript being a very synchronous or a single-threaded language. Although it can implement async properties, you can only have one alert in one line of code, right? So how the code is working is, it's on line 1, the pointer is towards line 1, that will execute. It will go to line 2, that line will execute. It will go to line 3, that line will execute. Until and unless you have these asynchronous methods like set timeout, set interval, async, await, uh, the flow of program won't be hampered. Okay, it won't skip and go to another line. So once you're executing alert in one line, only then you can have the next alert in the other line. Obviously, when you're writing a statement, why would you write two alerts inside it, right? It doesn't make any sense. A nested alert doesn't make any sense. Is there a concept of a default constructor in JS? Default constructor, no. We have like a default constructor case when we are talking about a method overriding, where if you're trying to extend the properties, or you're trying to inherit properties from your parent class, there's a thing where if you're creating a constructor for your parent class, that will automatically get invoked, or default constructor will happen for child class as well. But as of my knowledge, I might be wrong on this one, but as of my knowledge, I don't see that there's a default constructor thing in JavaScript. Or else, like every time we executed a class, we would get that constructor thing happening. If if you think that that thing is wrong, like that is according to my knowledge, I might have skipped on that one. If you think there's like something of that concept, do correct me. I would love to know on that one if you guys find it. But I don't know. I only know the concept of super constructor that comes when you're inheriting parent class and child class, which we will be talking today as well. That how method overriding is working and stuff once we deal with inheritance. Okay. So then I think, yeah, we've talked about constructors, we've taken examples of it, and we will be talking about A default constructor is created automatically by JavaScript if you have not added a constructor method in a particular class. Okay, fine. I will look into that one as well. Default. Okay, cool. Okay, now we'll like talk about prototyping. Okay. So this is a pretty interesting concept, although, because we have classes and objects and how things are working inside classes and objects, we don't really talk about prototypes anymore, but we still should know, how things work when we're talking about them. So these are basically referencing to an object, or it won't reference to anything, like it will be referencing to a null. Okay. So this pretty much works similarly, as objects only. So here you can create an object, you can give, features like name, language, blah, blah, blah. And here you have created another object called P. Inside that, you're creating a run method, right? And we do a console.log. Inside that run method, we are doing a console.log, still learning, right? So suppose you, do this. You comment this piece of code and try running a.run. Okay. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I think if you see in the console, yeah. So there will be, if you refresh, yeah. So you can see uncaught type error. A.run is not a function, right? Because we didn't really create a run function here in A, it will give you a syntax error, which is obvious. Okay. But now here what we do is we create a prototype of A that is referencing to another object P. Okay. So what we're trying to do is whatever features P has, A will reference its prototype to P. And then let's try running a.run. Okay. So now if you see it, you will have this output as still learning, which was written inside p.run method, right? So that means you're saying that, okay, A's prototype is created, which is pointing to the object P. And that is why whatever features you have inside P, even that can be used by A. Okay. Now imagine if A also had a run, method. Okay. So how will that work? So let's go to the console again, and you will see that, okay, it automatically reloaded. So you can see that self-taught programmer is there because A had a run method here. Self-taught programmer is printed, right? Now, there are two cases here. Okay. So in, I don't know, I think it happens in Python, where suppose you are taking a variable with a certain value, and then the same variable is changed with the next value. That thing gets overridden. Okay, I mean I think it's in Python. It gets over, but here what happens is because it's executing line by line, the first time it founds the run method, it will execute it accordingly. It isn't like because run is here and then here also you will get multiple outputs because A is a prototype. No, whatever the first case output is here, you will get it. Right. So this way we can create like multiple prototypes. We can also have prototypes of the prototype as well. Like, so here P is there, right? So what we can do is we can create a prototype for P that says that, okay, it will have this feature called name as Reva, right? So now what happens is, suppose you're doing a console.log and you're calling a.name. So you see P, A's prototype is pointing to P. And then P has another prototype that's going to have this feature which says name equals to Reva. And what we're trying to fetch here is a.name. So that means there are two prototypes involved. So we will see how it goes in case of the JavaScript. So you'll see that it's still learning, and then the other print is Reva, right? So that means no matter how many prototypes you create, you can always fetch the features accordingly. So it will print both still learning and Sneha, right? Whatever we were doing, a dot run and console log a dot name. So that is a basic. That's basically to tell you the concept of how prototyping works and how there's so everybody is aware about inheritance in general, right? That you're inheriting feature of this particular thing and that is extending. So without all of those complications of extends and stuff, there was this feature where how can you actually inherit features from objects, and that is why we had run method in A and check the response. Run. Can you uncomment the run method? Yeah, I did that, right? Is it this that you're saying that I uncomment this also, right? Is that what you meant? Yeah. So I already showed you that, right? So even though here's a run method, in this case, because A already has a run, it output the where did it go? It will output the self-taught programmer instead of still learning, which was inside run. Yeah. Run is just name of function. There. You can just change it to anything. Execute, and here also you can create execute. Yeah. Okay. And you will see that. Okay, still loading. So once you refresh it, you will get it as self-taught. A dot, what A dot name? I didn't get you. What was your question? Uncomment the console.log a dot name. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is out. It will be self-taught programmer and Sneha. Are you guys having issues in understanding how that is working? Got it? You sure? So it's clear for everyone, right? I mean, this could be anything. You might get confused because even name one had Sneha and the small glitch in Proto. I got it now. Okay, yeah. So I was saying that it can be anything. So if you are running a dot name, whatever we are running, that will be here. Okay. So I hope that whole concept of how things are connecting is working. No, see, so so this is like a very a historic concept, I would say, which was talking about objects in general, and we are taking classes, and there's no, So this basically, you'll have to create multiple segments inside it, and then do the prototyping. You'll have to make sure if it's referencing to the right thing. But when we are implementing inheritance, what we have to do is that you can just use an extends keyword, and you can just create separate methods and separate classes and stuffs for everything, right? So I really don't know, like, why do these people like discarded this. Maybe the runtime in this case was high, or maybe it was a little more complex for people to implement it. If you look at it, rather than the implementation of classes and objects in general, maybe that is why. Maybe when we try to implement this in terms of a class rather than an object, because prototype is wholly focused on, in its definition itself, you will see that a prototype is referent to an object or null. Okay, so it will always be like prototypes, then objects, then classes. right? So when we're talking about inheritance, it's on a higher level in which we are dealing with classes. Okay, so automatically you're dealing with it. So, but in this case, what we're talking about is that a particular prototype is referring only to a particular object. We don't know if this can actually work for classes as well. Okay, because it's on a lower level if you see it in hierarchy. Maybe that could be one of the possible reasons that they came up with inheritance, which does things on a higher level rather than increasing the level. Like in a common example, you would say that instead of suppose there's like 10 individual writers that you have, right? And then there's this agency that has 10 writers with it. So instead of approaching those 10 writers separately and doing stuff, what you would do is you would prefer going to the agency and then, giving the job to them on a higher level and let them do the lower level jobs, right? Dealing with those people. So inheritance doesn't we get ambiguity while you need to specify what do you mean when you're talking about ambiguity. Like we don't really use it in the latest technologies now, but I want to know like what do you actually mean when you say that there can be ambiguity. Using a P and creating prototypes. Yeah, I mean, see, that is one thing, right? Like this is just an example. You can do anything. You can put the name as anything. But we have to be, yeah, we have to be pretty careful. Now it's the question is something like if we start using similar variable names or variable name and class name, and we don't do the referencing or the polymorphism is not implemented correctly, will we have ambiguous errors? Yeah, we will, right? So it totally depends on the programmer who's doing. Okay, so there are like a lot of lower level issues that might be there. Now, this is an example, right? I was too lazy. I took this example. So it's like, okay, A and P is written. Okay, fine. I can change, how things work or give my examples, but let the names and the stuffs be similar, right? So you can make it anything. So that is totally like a subjective question. Like if you don't deal with the piece of code correctly, you're definitely gonna get various types of errors. I hope uh, whatever you wanted to ask, I predicted it, like I understood it correctly and then gave the answer. If there's anything else that you were referring to, you can definitely re-ask the question. Is it clear? Who was asking? Money. Yes. Okay. Cool. So we will talk about inheritance now. Okay. So as you can see that I've created this class animal, we've given a constructor with name and color. We are referencing this dot name, this dot color, giving them the respective values that we wanted, right? And we have created a run function and a shout function. And what is the chat? Okay. Console.log, this dot name is running, console.log, this dot name is barking. Okay. So this was for class animal. Okay. Now, how are we actually gonna call or create an object? This is how you see it, right? So what you do is you create an object, let ani is equals to new animal, and you give two parameter values, that is Bruno and White. Okay, and then you calling ani dot shout. So I think you'll be able to see here. Yeah. So you see Bruno is barking, right? So because we were trying to call ani dot shout, this particular method was running for class animal, right? Now what we do is we'll not create an object for m, and we'll see what we get as the output. So there will be definitely an uncut reference error where m is not defined, right? So what we will do is we will see again, we will go like upside, from bottom to top. Then we'll comment and we'll see if we are creating this class, we're definitely gonna get an error again because we haven't really created a class, right? The monkey class. So we uncommented this piece of code as well. And this is for you to understand that. Can anyone here briefly explain me, like how is this monkey class created? Like, what is the extend keyword doing, and why are we like putting in animal along with the extends keyword? What does it do?
The extend keyword will inherit the properties of animal class to the monkey class. Means the
Okay,
run
so
method and shout method can be worked with it.
okay, yeah. So then so that means you're saying that animal is the parent class and monkey is the child, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, Vinita, we can definitely do method overwriting of a parent. That is where I was talking about that, when we're trying to do method overriding, it works like a little different in terms of other programming languages. I have been like long lost when it comes to Java. I used to do it back in school and in first year of my college. But what I can tell you here is when you're trying to do method overriding and there's this parent class and child class, you'll always have this super keyword that will help you, call the constructor. You you can't like create if you're like using this operator, sorry, this keyword and trying to call something, and you're trying to create a constructor of your own in the child class, you will still have to use the super keyword. We will look into code on what kind of errors it gives you, so it will be pretty easy for you to understand that what are the mistakes that we can potentially make, and what is it the type of errors that we are getting once we are missing this particular line of code. So the best way to learn whenever you're learning any new thing is try generating all the possibilities. Okay, see that if you do this, is there an error? If no, it works correctly, fine. So just like you've talked about method overriding, we will be talking on method overriding in some time. So if you see a similar example where if you are creating a constructor for your parent class and you're not doing it for your child class, and you're trying to create a constructor of its own, and you're not using the super keyword, it will generate errors for you. Anyway, so I was saying, yeah. So because here we have taken run, here we have taken shout. For monkey class, we have eat banana and we have hide. If you do like m dot shout, m dot eat banana, m dot hide, this is obviously gonna give you the desired uh, outputs, right? So Bruno is barking, Chimpu is eating banana, Chimpu is hiding. So these are the stuffs that we have actually put here, right? But let's see if Annie dot hide works, right? What do you think? Will Annie dot hide work in this case, in this particular inheritance example? No, it won't work, right? So you already know, right, that because we're talking about parents classes, any feature that is with the child is not gonna be inherited in parents. Just like in real life, people can come and tell you that, oh, you guys look exactly like your mom, you look exactly like your father. But if somebody coming to you and saying that, oh, your father looks exactly like you, that's not like a valid statement, right? That is how it works in inheritance as well. So animal class can obviously have features, sorry, monkey class can obviously have features of class animal because animal is the parent class, but animal class cannot have the features of its child class. And then there's another example, dot eat banana, which is here. So again, this will also give you any.height is not a function. Why did Annie.eat banana didn't work? Did I not save it? I'm still not. And it should show, right, that that is an error. Oh, okay. So it's basically actually stopping here itself. That is why it won't really give you that particular execution here. Anyway, I hope, yeah, are semicolons not? Yeah, no. Semicolons are needed. They're definitely needed. That is a good practice. But I'm saying that once you're talking about statements, right? It will work without semicolons as well. Okay. So because you can see in other here when you're seeing these codes, right? So these codes are having these semicolons because I'm creating it separately, looking into examples and stuff. There are certain places where you see examples and they don't really use semicolons, so maybe that is why the semicolon here is missing, but I've been stressing on it enough that uh, even if you're writing a single statement, it is really important to put semicolons, because that is that one thing can create a lot of havoc in your code. And because it's so tiny, you'll always be focusing on the bigger bugs. It is so tiny, it takes like a lot of time to figure out. Okay, so it's advisable. Okay. So it's bad that I have not written here. I took this example from somewhere, so that is why it doesn't have it. But I maximum try that, if I'm trying to write the code on my, it should have semicolons. Because I still remember when I used to do like ML and AI stuff. I was working on a code and everything was working fine, and then there was an error, and that error was not really visible on where was it actually getting stuck. And there was so I put like 6 hours of my time, and then I went to sleep. I was still worried about how things will go. And then the next day, I asked my friend if he could take a look. Even he couldn't figure out. And then I saw that, okay, there was a spelling mistake. So because it was like a Coursera assignment, I wasn't really able to figure out why is it not passing and why is there an error. But it was a spelling mistake. So imagine, missing a semicolon or doing a spelling mistake, and you're not able to figure out because you don't even know what line of code is it, giving those errors. So in the terminal, you'll be able to see that, okay, this is where you missed stuff. But in general, it's really difficult. So it's always good to have those precautions before. Okay. Yeah. So this is what I was talking about, method overriding. Personally, I think like the last time I was teaching, I didn't use this concept because there are certain other topics that are pretty important that we have to go through when we're talking about Web3, but we'll do like a quick like go through with this as well.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
I had a doubt. I have created a constructor in the parent class. So how do I pass the arguments for it from the child class?
How do you pass? Okay. So you
Like,
created
because
a
it is a parameterized constructor.
Okay.
So like
So
in the child class, when I'm creating an object, I have to give the parameters for the parent constructor as well. So how do I do that?
So you will have to use the this keyword, but that is where even the concept of super keyword will come into play. That is what I was gonna explain you here. Can you like give me 5 minutes and see if your answer is
Sure.
question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so like I'll show you quickly. Where did it go? Okay, So if you see this example, what have we done? We have created a class employee, right? And we put a constructor called name. There's a console.log and it's saying, okay, name, employee's constructor is here. This dot name is equals to name. We're just referring usual stuff. You've created login, log out, request leaves, right? And it's using the interpolation. It is showing that employees has requested leaves, auto approve, blah, blah, blah. Now let's remove this segment first. Okay, you'll see this here when you're trying to, okay, so we created request coffee here, we created request leaves here. Okay, so what we wanted is we wanted something similar to this, but what we really were focusing on was we wanted a request leave application for programmers to go as like extra one. So suppose if it is going for employee 3, we wanted it to go as 3 plus 1 for programmers. Okay. So you will see that you can just put this method, use the super.request leaves and do the change, whatever change is required, right? You can just pass it on here and it will go like that. And here what we're doing is wait, I'll show you first. I'll show you creating employee. Okay, let's forget about the constructor first. Let's just go with the login, and that is why we will move this here. Okay, so if you look into this, see, you're getting this as employee has logged in, employee has requested 3 leaves, auto approved, right? So this is because you were creating the object for employee class, right? Now let's change it to programmer. So you will see that so you will still see that employee has logged in, employee has requested 4 leaves, auto approved, 1 extra is granted. So even though you're calling this, the other stuffs, okay, like e.login is working with employee has logged in and e.request leaves is going as 3, right? So what we're doing here is although we are calling that request leaves, because we've put in a super.request leaves as 4, and it's also showing, you know, that console.log 1 extra is granted, you are getting this particular output. Okay, now there was one way to do it as console.log employee has requested interpolation leaves plus 1 leaves 1 extra, right? So even then you will get this, right? So you wanted the same thing, but instead of just, you know, doing like a separate, like how many times will you actually you know, try to, like, this is like a lot of extra effort where you're putting these random messages inside it. So it's better to, you know, it's always good to write lesser code, and you just use the super keyword and you bring in this feature, because you don't want anything very different from what the employee class is implementing, right? So you're just calling it and then you're suggesting the desired changes. It's like the basic template remains the same and the new changes are introduced. Okay. So again, if we do this, okay, so I'll show you this. If you create a constructor of this one, right, you will see that there's undefined, right? Because your constructor, we didn't really pass a name when we were talking about this, right? And let's see if you're putting your name here. You're already passing it here. Let's see if that works. So you will see that although the constructor was created here, okay, and this was supposed to run, you're passing the object of programmer class, okay, and you're giving that constructor value here in the child class. Still it's working, right? Now, if I say that, okay, now if I say that I want to create a constructor of my own here, okay, and I will say that, okay, this is console.log and this goes like this. So you will see that this part is running, right? but it will give an error. Must call super constructor in derived class before accessing this or returning from derived constructor. Okay, so we have to use one whenever we are accessing something in the parent class. You have to use that super keyword before that this keyword's used, so that the reference is done correctly and you can get the desired output. You can't do it without using the super keyword. So if you do it here, then you'll see. So then it will work perfectly fine, right? Otherwise, if you remove this and you try creating a constructor for the programmer class separately, that will throw an error. So no matter what happens, if you're doing it for parent class with the constructor, you can automatically, while creating the object, you can pass on the argument value, and it will inherit the values. So whosoever asked me that question, I forgot your name. Is your question answered?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I had another doubt. Like
Hmm.
in JavaScript, don't we have scope specifiers for inheritance? So, like, is everything public here?
Uh, no, no, no. You're not. See, what do you mean by like is everything
I
public
mean,
here?
by when we create classes in other languages, when we create classes and then function methods inside them, so like we specify them as public, private, or like protected, and also in this case we haven't defined anything. So
Done
is
it.
it
Yeah,
default
yeah.
or like everything is public here?
Yeah. So see, we are treating everything as object, right? So most of it goes as the global object only.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a
So
doubt here.
yeah.
Like for the child class, can we have a different, can we have a constructor with different number of arguments?
Let's try it. Let's do um let's do this. Let's see if that works. Okay. So this will not work, right?
No, you
Uh,
haven't uncommented super.
oh, okay. So you're saying that we should put super and name and age as well, or just name?
No, just name. Because parent has only name.
Okay. Let's. Oh, wait. I need an error here. Hmm. Yeah, that will work.
So like the second argument that will pass when we make this object of the class, it will automatically assign itself to age, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay.
So let's see even that. Let's see if that works. We'll keep it 18. Okay. But we are see now when you're talking about when we're creating this, right? We're just calling these, right? Name employee constructor is here, right? We're not doing something as printing it here. Maybe we can try doing that here. Do you think if I say age, we were doing name. This is yeah, right. So basically, whenever we are referencing it from here, right, we'll have to use this. But whatever you're putting in new in the child class and you're declaring that, okay, this is your desired output that should come here. Like here, we were just talking about name, right? If you put age here also, then again, super keyword has to come in and you'll have to pass both the arguments, right? But because age has nothing to do with this class, it will work perfectly fine when you're just talking about the programmer class. But again, if you change the object to child class, it will show you error.
So like if in the child class we remove name, then it will show error. It name
Yeah.
has to be there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think this is done. So this is basically to explain that if you're overriding stuff and there are certain minimalistic changes that you want to do and stuff, there's like this super keyword that comes in. Personally, as of now, whatever we've been talking, that is very, if you're doing like a full stack project and JavaScript comes into play, then you might use like a lot of concepts. But when you're writing like deployment scripts for the smart contract deployment locally, or anything that is limited to Web3, when you're talking about smart contracts in general, you would not need like a lot of these concepts. But this is basically to take you through the whole JavaScript system so that you know stuff, and then you can just go through things, and you should know that okay, this is the basic concept on how it works. So you can definitely, if the basic is clear, you can definitely crack the more difficult concepts pretty easily. uh okay, this was similar. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, there was another concept of the static keyword that we should talk definitely. So what static keyword does is, suppose you're creating like multiple methods inside a class, but you want a particular method to not be object focused, but it should be like applicable for everything. Okay, like it should be a general method to be used. In that case, you'll have to use the static keyword in front of that method, to say that okay, this is not belonging to any specific object that I'm creating, but it should be applicable to like all. Okay, so if you see this, see here. Okay, so what I was trying to do is like, there's a class animal, and then you create a constructor, and then you're creating walk, and then you're talking capitalize. So even though I'm creating this object called Jack, which is in lower j, okay, I created a capitalize function that will change the first alphabet of my whatever argument value I've given to uppercase, and it will present the output, right? So whatever you call, that will work. But if you are trying to use this particular method capitalize to a specific object, this is how you're creating it basically, then this won't work. Okay, like you can't assign it to, the other part will give you a error, because j dot capitalize is not a function, right? So you can't assign it to a particular object, rather you want it to be like a pretty general stuff, and then you can do things inside it, and you can access it globally, then that will work. Did you get my point? Guys, did everyone go away after hearing about static keyword? Okay, cool. So let me check through my notes if there's anything that I missed out of these topics. Then we can quickly discuss document object model and browser object model. And if we have time, we can go quickly through callbacks stuff as well. Okay, static keyword. Okay. So there's one point that you should always remember, that a class can have like more than one static method. Okay, but if you're declaring a more than one static method that has a similar name, okay, JavaScript will always go with the like the last one, always invoke the last one. Okay, there's nothing else. I think, yeah, that part is done. Okay. We did inheritance example as well. Okay, so I told you that static method is not for an object, for object class. Works. Now I'll show you few codes that will be totally on document object model and browser object model. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
I have a small doubt. Like, is
Yeah.
multiple inheritance possible in JavaScript?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Why do
Like
you
when
think
we
it?
have,
Hmm.
like when we inherit like multiple classes in the from the child class, and when we call it, like which method implementation occurs in child class? Did you get that?
No.
So a child class extends multiple classes if those
Hmm.
classes which it is inheriting from has
Hmm.
methods with same name. And
Okay.
when in child class, when we call that method, like which class implementation is it going to take?
Okay, so in that case, it totally depends on the functionalities on how you're trying to do it or what is your utility. It might show you an error as well because it will get confused. There was a concept I think in I forgot the name of it, but it will give you a reference error, which because it's confused with the methods that it is trying to invoke, right? Like you're saying that there are multiple yeah, diamond problem. Yes, so there are like two parents class, right? And you have like similar method name for the parent class, okay? And you're saying that the child is inheriting from both the parents. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And then a particular method is being called in the child. So which method will be called, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was your question. So, see, best way to see that or to get the solution of your answer is you doing that hands-on and see if there's a particular output that you're getting, but it definitely lead to an error, reference error, because it's very difficult. Either it will do one thing is that it will whatever method of the parent is coming first or declared first, okay, because we're talking about uh, interpret language, right? As you saw in prototyping, that once you're in a dot run and the run method in a class, and there's a run in p class, because the prototyping reference is happening first through a's run method. It is printing a dot run, right? So either it will give you the output of the parent who has been declared first in the method, or it will give you an error. So because I haven't done that example in the nearest times, I can't assure you. But these are the two possible scenarios that you will be getting.
Thank you.
Okay, I think since this question has come up, it's better that we take a look at it and just have a discussion over it, so everyone can maybe try searching how multiple inheritance things work, um, and is there a particular solution, what is the particular problem gonna be if have similar method names for two parents. So it's like everyone no, multiple inheritance is possible when we're talking about ES6 version. That is sure. But there are like possible scenarios. I think you guys should look through this link. Yeah. So, see, I think you should, yeah, definitely go through this link. Uh, Okay, there is no such thing. So if you come so this segment has a, has and is a terminologies, and after that there's a piece of code, class, Facebook, blah blah blah, and then there are bullet points like 1 and 2, which says, but if for some reason this would not work for you and you really want to go with multiple inheritance, here is what you should know. There is no such thing as a method resolution order in JavaScript. So you won't be able to call the particular method from the inheritance chain with the same name. That is definitely going to give you an error. Multiple inheritance may cause you a lot of headaches, one of which is the triple D problem. So that is deadly diamond of death. Okay, so that problem is which occurs with the inheritance of classes, and it's like when you're talking about multiple parents and yeah, you guys should also check, you know, how this triple D thing has been defined. Oh, did I send the link personally? Yeah, sorry. Instead of putting it for everyone, I put it for a particular person. Okay, this is multiple inheritance in JavaScript. So everyone can go through this particular blog, and this is Deadly Diamond of Death. This is also one of the blogs that is explaining you about what is the problem that can occur with triple D. And in that blog, we also have like a particular solution, like not a particular solution of how the multiple inheritance thing will work, but that implements something called as mixins. Okay, so now let's take a look at how we can do multiple inheritance in ES6. First of all, let's define one thing. An object can have one prototype. Inheriting from two classes can be done by creating a parent object, blah blah blah. Additional features. And see, then again, this thing might go above your head as a tangent, but you can, you know, do like when you're actually at a peace of mind and you're in a mood to understand a little technical stuff, you can go through it. But what he says is using, for example, would benefit every time you think of using multiple inheritance, think once more. What I love about programming is that there is always another way. Using, for example, dependency injection would benefit with more flexibility and overall will look simpler. Using mixins in JavaScript can benefit when you need to add generic extensions into class that are used in multiple other classes. So this is the first time that I'm coming across a term called mixin in JavaScript. I personally never do. There's a topic of mixins in some websites, man. Yeah, I'm saying that this is the first time that I am coming through this term. So there are obviously, see, JavaScript is huge. I don't know, like people who have like done it over years, they are pretty good at it. They are the ones who contribute to the ecosystem in general. But I personally feel that there are certain things that I should know, how the basic language works, how is it different from other languages, how can I implement it in a project? Because if you start getting into technicality of everything, your brain will actually get baffled at some point, because there's not just one thing that you have to learn. Okay, you have multiple things to learn, and you should always limit about what thing to focus on. Suppose you get a washing machine at your house, you will not say that no, I should know how to operate the refrigerator and an AC and washing machine, all the equipments that are present in your house. You should always focus on what is in front of you. Once you get a refrigerator, once you get an AC, you can definitely learn the working of it, right? But if you start getting into, okay, how this washing machine was made, how the integrateds are working, how this chip is working, you'll go mad. That's not your area, right? So having this question is very, whosoever asked this question, kudos that you're trying to, you know, at least think on a level where you can possibly have edge cases. But I'm saying that just go through the blog, see what this triple D problem is, or what mixin is, and blah. But limit yourself. Don't get into trying to solve multiple inheritance, because you don't even know if you're going to come across that concept while you're, working with JavaScript. So don't baffle your head with that thing. But good that you're asking questions. Okay, so I think that has been a lot of theory continuously. So we'll take like a break, and we will go jump into the calculator project. There were a few kids who were sending me screenshots at the start of the session. I'm so sorry that I missed it, because I thought, because you guys are fresh, it's better to start with concepts first, and then we can do a quick discussion on the project. So we'll do like a 10-minute or 10-minute discussion on the project, and then we'll go back, learn about document object model and browser object model, and see how the manipulation works. So I think Sai Ramani was the one who sent me the calculator UI UX screenshot. That looks pretty good to me. So instead of doing like a direct text to me, just put it in the chat so that people can also see. And okay, everyone's not sending me as direct to me. It's fine. Nobody's gonna judge you on the UI UX. If you see the UI UX of projects I do, it's shit. Okay. Yeah, good. It's better to put in as everyone and not direct, because then there are other people who can give you feedbacks too. And it's really good to see that you guys are implementing the project. I think this is the best way to check that you've implemented. Shweta, oh, the UI looks good. Good, guys. Okay, so because I won't be like able to assess if your calculator thing is working through these screenshots, I want to know like if it's taking in inputs correctly. Just take a screenshot of along with the inputs, show multiple inputs, and if the every other thing is working. Okay. Okay. Simple calculator. Okay. So I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 35 people currently in the session. I wanna at least see half the crowd with the screenshots. Okay, and whosoever asked me in the last class whether a calculator should apply BODMAS rule or not, did you successfully implement it, or did you do it without the BODMAS? Okay, still very few responses. We need at least 50% people to show us. What is this? Jyotsna definitely needs to work a little bit on her UI UX, because in the first look, I didn't even thought that this was a calculator. Okay, looks pretty creative, because you have placed the operands, like those symbols in a symmetrical manner of 3 and then a symbol in 3, but you should definitely work on your UI UX. I mean, it's a fun thing. Don't worry. I wouldn't have made even that, but if I was doing calculator on my own. Okay. Still very few responses. There are 33 people. Okay, I'll call someone randomly who has not sent me the screenshot. I think Prisha did. Okay. Kamya, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I have sent you the screenshot chat.
Okay, you've done it right now. I see a few people missing who were present in the last class. We should definitely take a feedback on what is the reason of dropping out. Are they enjoying their Friday night? Or is it too difficult, or is it too basic for them to understand? Lavanya. Okay, Lavanya is not. She is probably having a nice nap. Okay, but people who have implemented it and who have put it in the chat, good work. It's always the extra effort that's gonna give you something more than the others, and it's gonna set you out from the crowd. So it's good that you guys are working on it. I know it's a little difficult to stay consistent and do that extra percent of work when you're in college and other stuff. I've been through it, I know it, but it's all worth in the end. I mean, even through the journey and in the end also, it's all worth it. So I would like yeah, Sairama's UI is pretty attractive. I agree. Good work. Okay. Yeah, I was coming back to Kamya. Kamya, can you please, send us a screenshot of your code on how you've implemented it, the calculator.
Just a second.
Okay. And anyone else also who has sent me the screenshots, I would like currently working on some changes on UI so that is okay, cool, doesn't work, it's fine. Those who are still working, it's okay. There's no like thing as why haven't you done? I just want you to do it. Saturday night is always a deadline, so you can take your time. Even if people are stuck after that, it's okay. Take your time. It's always difficult in the start and you're learning and stuff. There's no hurry, but make sure that you don't lag behind a lot. Coming back to the code, yeah, people who sent me the UI UX, I would also want any of you guys to put the code or the screenshot so that we can take a look and have a discussion. If there's so that if you have implemented the code separately, like sorry, not separately, in a different manner than what was specified or what the other person has done, you can always like do a quick round of discussion. Okay, Kamya, can you please explain us the code?
Yes, ma'am. So
Yeah.
just a second. So basically, I have just made an HTML file. उसी में I have implemented the Java functions. So basically, it's the basic CSS. Then I made a body tag and उसमें सारे numbers and जो operands हैं उधर. Append value function is basically to append the value in the text वाला input वाला box. And these are buttons हैं. And उसके बाद I have made 3 functions using Java. JavaScript. First is the append value, which I said ki input wale box mein jayega. दूसरा is the calculate. Therein I have used an inbuilt function evaluate, which will evaluate whichever function, मतलब addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, uska, and then clear input, the C wala thing, which will clear the entire input text box.
Okay, cool. So what you've done is you've basically implemented the whole JavaScript segment inside the HTML file itself.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So I see that you've used something called document.getElement by ID. Okay. So can you explain us what it does?
Ma'am, and basically, how do I explain? The input box, this ID, the text book, the text box, wherein everything we'll be inputting. I have given it an ID, which is input. So what it does is document.getElement by ID is जो ID का नाम है जैसे input, वहां से जो भी हम उसमें value डालेंगे वो हमारा function read करेगा and then फिर उसी के according उस पे act करेगा.
Okay, so that means you have some idea about document object model, right? On how things work.
I use this while developing, तो फिर वहां से थोड़ा सा I used. वैसे it's
Hmm.
like not exactly, but like जैसे हम लोग web pages and all में use करते हैं HTML and Java, तब वहां से उठाया था वैसा.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. Okay, I see. Okay, this looks good. Shweta, can you explain us your code? I see. So I see. Oh, okay. So were you the one who was talking about implementation of stack in the last class when we were talking about the calculator project?
I was not the one, but actually I also thought about using the stack for like if we want to apply the board mass, we have to use the stack. So I actually tried using stack. Then I came up with another problem that when we are clicking the numbers, so if it is a single digit, then we can use it. But if it is a multiple digit, then I have to create another condition for until we find another operator. You have to take the whole digit as a whole and all.
Yeah.
So that was pretty complicated. So at the end, I did some research and I came up with this eval keyword, which actually does
Mm-hmm.
everything on its own. So the project became like too easy then. Then
Yeah.
actually it became a one-line code for that.
Yeah, right. That is the keyword that we actually discussed in the last class. I really didn't want to reveal it, but I think somebody already wrote it in the chat, so we had a discussion on it. But still, I would like to, want you to explain the code and how did you actually like go.
Yeah, so firstly, I have written the Java code inside the HTML only. So I have created an empty string called ultimate. So
Okay.
first in a just a second. Yes. So this new array, the stack I have created, I haven't used it inside it, but I was like trying to do that. So it's not useful. So the first function is that add element. So every time a key is pressed on my calculator, it will just append. It will show this get element by class name will add that element. Like take that data and it will append it to ultimate. So every time for that add element, it is given for all the buttons. So that every time the key is pressed, it will add it to the ultimate string. And then the keyword but clear button is another function which is connected to the clear button of my calculator. So it will just make the ultimate string empty, and then I am passing it back to that screen where data is showing for which element is pressed, so that it is empty again. And last one is that work res function. So work res function will basically evaluate the ultimate string which has the complete complete operand plus operator expression for me. So result will carry that result, and then I have implemented again that inner HTML to display the result in the screen. And then I have made the ultimate empty again, so that screen is removed if I press a new button again.
Okay, got it. Good work. So, just like in the previous discussion, we were talking about document.getElement by ID, right? So, how do you think document.getElements by class name works here?
So similar to get ID, like when we specify an element by ID, then we are using get element by ID. But if I am specifying class name for a particular element of the HTML, then we use get element by class name. The advantage for this will be if we use class name and we have multiple elements with the same class name, then I think they will take the data from all of them. So it is better to use ID when we are trying to specify a particular element. But in this case, all the buttons are the same. So that's why I used class name.
Okay, so okay, good. Good explanation. So why I am focusing on too much on these document.get element by ID, document.get element by class name and stuff, because this is we're gonna talk about when we talk about document object model. Okay. So browser object model and document object model is DOM and DOM. These are pretty like DOM especially very important concepts, big concept in JavaScript, because a lot of thing is happening on the back end. There's a lot of modifications that you got to do. Just like these girls here are fetching, a particular piece of code that's written in HTML with a certain ID. They're fetching it, in JavaScript code using that particular element. So that is helping you interact with the user on the front end, right? So it's exactly like when you're sitting in a class of 100 students, it is easier for the teacher to give you roll numbers and then specify those roll numbers, because although there might be people with similar names, but their register numbers, their roll numbers will be different. So it's easy for the teacher to, differentiate or interact. Like if there are two Snehas or three Snehas back to back, so they might have because there's has to be like some alphabet that changes in my name, right? So if I go as Sneha Kumar, there can be someone as Sneha Sharma, there can be someone as Sneha Singh. So there will be a particular roll number that is assigned to all of us, right? 49, 50, 51. So if the interaction has to be done to the teacher, like face to face, in person, let's see, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about front-end interaction. So when we're talking about humans, let's talk it that, okay, the interaction is happening in person. So instead of, referring to as Sneha, what they can do is, okay, roll number 50, I want to meet you in the staff room. So come once the class is over, right? So what it will do is it will remove those circumstances where an error can occur, right? If all three Snehas are attentive in class and the teacher says Sneha, all three of us might stand up, right? Because we don't know who she's talking to. So there's this particular ID or this particular name here is not valid. ID is valid. So there can be situations where the name is not valid, ID is valid, ID is not valid, name is valid, and that kind of interaction has to be done, in an HTML file that is present that is directly interacting with the user, right? These kinds of manipulations, when you do in a browser, it's called browser object model manipulation, that is BOM. And when you're doing it through document, when you're talking about particular elements inside HTML and stuff, it goes into document object model. Okay, so this is the last code that we'll be discussing. Prisha has sent and she said that she has added the comment for easier understanding. The code looks pretty good. I love a clean code with proper comment and a proper alignment, I would say. I used to be someone who writes a lot of messy code, and then I got this OCD issue that really really focuses. And the beautify thing, I think this is the beautify extension that Visual Studio Code does. So it will show you the alignment also. So it's good, if you write code like this, it's easier to understand. So you can see the script again. It says const screen document.get element by ID display. So with this piece of code, you should know that there is an element, there's a line of code in the HTML segment that has this element that whose ID is display. Okay, so whenever we're talking about const screen, it will fetch that particular element that has the ID display. That is why we say document get element by ID display. That means fetch that particular element whose ID is displayed, right? Get all the buttons, then what they're doing is const buttons equals to document dot query selector all button. So again, that is another manipulation that can happen. So it will select whatever button. So here it's talking about get all buttons, right? So it'll pick up all the buttons that is available. Let screen value equals to empty string, right? Or empty value. So that is where we are doing when you're talking about appending it, right? So suppose we have to do like a 5 plus 6 plus 3 divided by 2, whatever. So this 5 plus 6 plus 3 divided by 2, all of these are individual elements. But what you should know is, even though we're seeing it as 5, 6 and plus is a different element, inside this code, it is all inside one. Okay, so it's inside the string value, it's getting appended, and then we're using a built-in method or function called eval, which is doing all the evaluation that is okay. So we don't really need to understand how that eval is working, but we should know that, okay, there's something as eval that does all the work for us and makes it easy. Attach click event listeners to each button. So again, event listeners will help you figure out that if a particular thing or if a particular action has been done. So event listener, right? If a particular event has occurred, listen to it and understand what is it supposed to do, right? So they're doing button dot for each button, button dot add event listener, click, blah, blah. It goes into an arrow function and it says get the text content of the click button. And that is why we're doing constant button text equals to button dot inner text. So whatever has been that inner text value, you have to fetch it, right? So then again, this is another event method, I say, that is doing all the manipulation that is required. It's saying the next line of code says if button text equals to x, okay, handle button clicks based on the button's text content, replace x with asterisk for multiplication option operation, else if button text equals to c, clear the screen value. So she has instead of like putting a asterisk, maybe, okay, maybe she has put an x, right? That is why she's saying that if you find the inner text value as x, you have to replace that x with asterisk for multiplication operation. And find the button text as c, you have to clear the screen value. So you got to understand that even though we have not seen how the UI looks in her case, we certainly know that there is a button that has X written on it and there's a button that has C written on it, right? And she's clearly specified that what we are supposed to do, right? There might be like there are people who have used asterisk symbols, so it's pretty easy to understand, right? But she wanted to do something different. She put an X and she's telling us that, okay, if you're clicking this element is supposed to do multiplication. So if you find the inner text as X, change it, okay? Do asterisk for multiplication operation. If there's a C, clear. Implement the clear option, set the screen value as empty again, okay? Else if the button text is equal to operator, then you have to evaluate the screen value and handle if there are errors. So she has also used the try and catch. So we have not really talked about try and catch, but what you should know is there's a default exception handling or error handling situation where we are talking to where we are implementing the try and catch block that is basically gonna deal with the errors and do a certain thing if that is there, or give you an error message. So that is a good thing. You should always keep in mind that once you're implementing a project, there has to be, it is prone to be to have human errors. So you should always have those precautions of exceptional handling whatever, so right. So if you think that you have implemented a calculator and there's someone who might not be that aware that if you're dividing by 0, there will be like a separate value, you have to make sure that you write a piece of code that specifies that, okay, that if there's an expression issue, if there's an how do I say, if there's a not valid inlet expression, then handle this particularly. If everything works well, okay, if equals to operator is working, if it's working, and just try and catch and stuff. Else append the button's text content to the screen value. So if you're not implementing equals to, that means you don't need to do the eval function, right? Like you don't have to implement if you're not So it's already figuring out whatever the inner text is. Until and unless we hit equals to, we have to keep appending. That is why she's put an else condition that if none of these things are happening, append the button's text content to the screen value. That is why there's screen value plus equal to button text. And then update the display with the new screen value. So whatever will be calculated after, either the eval function is clear or after a button text is added, the screen value will be updated. Okay, once you click C, again it will be clear. So good work. The code looks pretty neat and the implementation has been done pretty nicely. Okay. So, okay. Soumya, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you sent a piece of code. It's for the calculator assignment, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you explain us like pretty quickly?
Yes, ma'am. It is a script file, ma'am. I haven't sent you the HTML and CSS code. So
It's fine.
here,
Let's
yes, ma'am.
deal with
So
this.
I have declared 3 functions, ma'am, in which C function, which shows the value in the calculator, and the
Mm-hmm.
V value function, it is there, no, ma'am. So it appends the value like a string. Okay, and the eval function, it is a default built-in function in the JS. So it evaluates the entire string which appends in the val function, ma'am. So we'll get the output. We'll get the output, ma'am, if it is an error, like in the evaluation. So I have used a try and catch, so that if it catches any error, it will show that in the screen there is an error, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, good that you're doing the code all together. I wonder how are you able to type it so fast? Maybe I'm taking a lot of time to explain. Are you able to like follow up with all the code that we're doing or like
No,
some
ma'am.
pieces?
Actually, in which I have a actually I have didn't work with prototypes, ma'am. Okay, so I
Okay.
want to. I mean, in fact, if I forgot it, I just want to just go through the class which you have
Okay.
dealt with. So that's why I have written the code in order to
Good.
know.
Good. Yeah. So it's always recommended to do something like that. If you think that whatever I'm explaining is understandable for you in one go, you're good to go. Okay. There's very less chance that you're going to forget it, or there's very less chance that if you see that particular piece of code, you're going to get stuck the next time. But if there's something that is, creating that kind of friction in your mind and you're not able to understand, make sure that by the time I'm explaining it, you're able to write the code, because you might forget that, and it will again take a lot of energy. So while you do it during class, you can do your experiment and ask questions and stuff. Okay, good, good. I'm pretty happy with the projects that have come up so far, and I hope that other people will also be implementing it really nicely. Since I see that most of you guys already have an idea of how the oh my god, I have so many picture tabs open because of the images. So most of you have an idea of how the document object model and stuff is working. I don't think it will take a lot of time, so we will quickly wrap that topic up as well. Just let me share my screen and close these calculator projects. Okay. This is here. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Now you'll be able to see my screen. I don't really need this. Okay. And yeah. Okay. So we'll quickly see how the browser object model does. So see everything. First thing, so I've always mentioned that everything in JavaScript is considered as an object. One thing. Secondly, when you hear the term browser object model, you should be able to relate to the fact that we're talking something about doing an interaction in the browser itself, right? Everything has been treated as a window, and then the particular manipulation or particular thing happens. Now suppose you want to you build a web page or stuff, okay, and you've seen those, or if you build a portfolio site for yourself, right? There are these contact us buttons that goes to your Instagram or Twitter profile and stuff, okay. So that is one type of event, right? So you're clicking something on the window that is in front of you, and it is rerouting to some another browser window, right? Or another tab, to say. So that is how the manipulation occurs when you're talking about BOM. Okay. So if you will see, there's a script type, and I've created a function message that says open www.youtube.com, and I've created a button that has a value YouTube. And once I do that, yeah, okay. Once I click, like there's a like on click event that's happening. So if I click the YouTube button, the message functions shall be called, and the execution will happen, right? So ignore this. Welcome to another class. I'll probably comment it. It's from, oh, sorry. Also, you guys should see that in HTML, when we are commenting, it's different from the usual comment line. So there has to be this tag button, then there's an exclamatory mark, then there should be two dash. And so this is basically this goes like this, okay. So once you do half of it, like do the exclamation mark and do the two dash, the other two dash and the closing tag will automatically appear if you're using some kind of extension in Visual Studio Code. So you should always know that those slashes and asterisks and stuff work, okay. So you can see there's a YouTube here, and once I click, it will take me to youtube.com. Are you guys able to see that it's taking me to youtube.com? Guys, hello, hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, good, good. Okay, yeah, so now how do I close it? Shit. What is this thing do? Why does this doesn't happen on its own? Have still not figured out. Oof. Cool. So this was the script that we were talking about, browser object model. Now again, I'll have to stop sharing and then go to the tab because I can't see my tab only. How do I actually switch it? Okay. So when we're talking about browser object model, you should know that we're always referring it in terms of interaction with the browser, and the default object, I would say, for a browser is a window. Okay, so you can treat it as a object, suppose. Okay, and whatever functions are to be called, that will be called by specifying the window. Now suppose all this while we have been talking about alert, right? We've been talking about prompt. Then there are other functions also, confirm and blah blah. So as of now, what we've been doing is in the code we directly write alert and the message, right? But if you do a window.alert also, it's the same thing. Why? Because this kind of interaction is not happening in your terminal. It's happening directly in the browser. So once you're writing this window.alert, it's basically that you're using that object, the default object of the browser, and then you're calling a particular function. Okay, that alert is a function, prompt is a function. So that is why whether you do a window.alert, a window.prompt, or just alert, just prompt, it's gonna behave in a similar manner. Now, um, window is typically seen as the object of the browser. You can't say that it's an object inside a JavaScript. No, that is not how you talk. When we're talking about objects inside JavaScript, I've told you that everything under JavaScript is an object except primitive data types. So and there's an exception that for these primitive data types also to be objects, you'll have to use the new keyword with them, and then they behave like objects. Okay. What else? Okay, so we've talked about alert, confirm, blah blah blah. Yeah, then there are other like open, close, set timeout. These are like window objects and stuff. Okay, then there was document objects. So first thing first, when we're talking about document object, we've already seen 2-3 girls explaining about how they were fetching document or get element by ID, get element by class name and stuff. So this document object is basically representing an HTML document. So whenever your HTML document is loaded in the browser, it will become a document object altogether. Okay, so that is where all the functions, all the functionalities that you're trying to implement will happen. Now, there are multiple ways by which you can access the object of this document or the document object. So it can be a field value. Okay, now I don't know if you guys have done it, but there are some people who might have implemented JavaScript calculator code using form. Okay, so once you're fetching something as document.form.name.value, you will get the value of that particular name field. Okay, or you can have whatever is the specified name that is attached to it, you will get a value of it. Okay, or what you can do is you can fetch by ID, right? That is why we were talking about document.getElement by ID. So whatever element we want, we can specify the ID of that element and we can fetch it. Okay, so then there's class name and stuffs. So I'll show you this. Okay, this should work. Control this. Okay, on multiple screens. Okay, going back here. So this was for a browser object model, obviously. And see here. Now you can see that this example that I've written is for document object model. And what we're doing is we will uncomment this first. Okay. Okay. So this particular thing is doing what? There's a function called getCube. And what we're doing is let cube number equals to document.getElement by ID cube number, right? So that means we've definitely created some element whose ID has been specified as cube number. Okay, so we are fetching the value and storing it inside the variable cube number here. Okay, and as an alert, what you have to do is cube number asterisk cube number asterisk cube number, right? So that is definitely going to return you the cube of that particular number, and you will see that there will be an enter number form that has input type text, ID cube number, name also cube number, and it's like a button. The value of that button is cube, and once you click, will be an on-click event that is triggered, which takes you to the function getCube, and that getCube will be called. Okay, so once we go to the browser again, you will be okay. Let's close the console. Once you enter the number here, suppose instead of a number I enter Sneha, okay, and I start doing cube, so it will give you not a number. Right? Let's see what it does when we are implementing 56. The cube of 56 is 175616. So you since you've built a calculator, you can definitely use that calculator to calculate the cube and see if it's the correct value. But you should know that why am I telling you this is that this is a particular HTML file. We're creating functions inside that. And there are multiple elements that here we're referring to. There's a text value, there's a button that is created, there's a particular function that is being executed. And all of it is happening inside the HTML file, but whatever results we're supposed to get, we're getting it in the browser, right? So the whole manipulation is happening here through the document model. And because we are directly talking about that that value, we're talking about how documenting can change it. Now there are multiple things that you can do. Okay, it's not just one button. It can be like multiple stuffs. Like if you see this piece of code that I've done, I am talking about what is the total number of elements, and I'm creating a variable called all genders, and instead of doing a get element by ID, I'm doing get elements by name. So every time I create a new element as gender, that particular thing will be fetched and stored inside the variable all genders. Okay. Now, what am I supposed to do with that value? So there's an alert button again that says total genders equals to plus. Plus is basically that concatenation that's showing you that, okay, just concatenate this string with the value, and it's doing in all genders dot length. Okay, so that variable thing you do dot length, and it will return you that particular value, how many genders you're creating inside that, how many names you're creating with that particular name ID. Sorry to use ID, just to specify that how many are going to have that particular name criteria that you've put. So inside this form we are doing male, female, and other, right? And we've put this input type as radio. Okay, and we've given the name as gender, name, gender, name, gender, and there are different values, male, female, right? And there's a button, there's a on click event that is again pointing to the function, and value is total genders. Okay, so we will see how that's working. So if you can click obviously these male, female, other, you can choose any, and when you're talking about total genders, it's going as 3, right? Now suppose I comment female. Sorry, bad habit. Commenting in a wrong way, bad habit. Okay, so if I do this and save it, okay, let's see how it will go. So it will be a male or it will be other. Okay, so let's see. Then again, the value of total genders is changing, right? Now, suppose I remove this, okay, and copy this, okay. Copy this and create another thing called abracadabra gender. Okay. So again, you know that you have created another element that has the gender and the value is other, right? So again, this will be chosen, this will be added as a value, and you will see total genders is 4. Now, suppose I change this to gender ing. Okay, suppose I've added this, right? So what will happen? Let me. Did I not save it? Okay, yeah. So this is still coming because this value has to exist because we've mentioned it. But what we did was initially we were having it as name gender, but we changed it to name gendering, and that is why the whole value for the total gender here will change. Okay, 3. So this is the manipulation that we're doing through our HTML. Oh, my laptop is stuck. I can't go to my Visual Studio. So this is the manipulation that we're doing on the document object side, right? So you can do whatever you want to. You can create forms that have those particular restrictions that, if you're putting a password value, it should be this, password value should not be blank, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see another example. It's going to be the last example of this class. So, God, what is wrong with me? Okay, sorry, I'll comment this. Okay, So there are multiple common segments. That is why maybe this is not, it didn't work in one go. Yeah, now it should work. So you can see that there's a script tag. We are creating a function called validate form. Okay, and we have created two variable names, var name, var password, right? What we're doing is we're doing document.myform.name.value. So whatever name or password, the thing we are talking about, we're fetching the value of whatever we have in these, maybe the text box, right? It can be a text box. So whatever value it is, we have to fetch. Now we have put a condition that says if name equals to null, okay, or name equals to blank. Yeah, name equals to null, name equals to blank, like space. Alert name can't be blank. Okay, so you have to give an alert message and then return false. Else if password dot length is less than 6, alert password must be at least 6 characters long, return false, right? And then we've created these elements as name, password, given that input type, whatever is gonna be displayed in the button, and given a yeah, we have not given that thing, password or register this value. We will see here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put Sneha Kumari and I'll put password as blank, and I'll see. So it will give you password must be at least 6 characters long. So I'll put some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This register will go nowhere. That's one thing, right? So we will reload it. The page, okay, yeah, it's fine. Okay. So again, we'll come to this new.html and I'll try to keep this blank. No, don't take it by default. We'll keep this blank and we'll put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, blah, blah, blah. We'll try to do register and it says name can't be blank, right? So now you know that, all of those alert you get, okay, or you get that display while you're filling your email, while you're filling your password, and say that, okay, there should be an uppercase, there should be a special character. So all of that manipulation is happening through a piece of code, which looks like this. So what you can say is you can put conditions that, password shall have at least one uppercase. So you can go through the password and check if there's an uppercase letter. The password should be of particular length. The name can't be blank. A particular email ID should have @ and Gmail and blah and blah. You can't just, so, okay. I think I had an assignment for you guys. I'll talk about that. So, like, how do you validate a particular email? Suppose you're taking email, and how do you actually check that that's a valid email format? So that can be like one use case. So suppose what I do is yeah, I do, like, I just put Sneha. Suppose my email is sneha@gmail.com, right? Now what I do is I omit the Sneha and I just leave the space and I do @gmail.com. Okay, or I write 0 @gmail.com. Okay, so this is gonna throw you errors, right? Because data that you have before @ can't be vacant, and the data that you have after gmail.com, it can't like go as gmail.sneha, right? So there are various conditions, test cases, that is gonna be when you're talking about yeah, that you're going to talk about once you're talking about validation, right? So there are these multiple edge cases that you can put and check. So all of that validation, all of that operation is happening through this document object model. Okay, so I gave you this example because this is a pretty common example that we come across, right? There's always this alert if you obviously that's like a more modified way. They have bars and they will say, okay, password length is bad, sorry, password strength is bad, okay, it's medium, it's strong and stuff. But still, if you go for basic websites, it will tell you that, okay, you should always have a password length greater than this length, or it should not be null value, the name should not be null value. So now you see how it is implemented through JavaScript, right? So yeah, that was I think it from my end for today's class. If there are questions, you guys can ask. How many of you are still here? 29. Okay, so come on, speak up. We are almost done. I mean, we are done. So you can give me a quick feedback about how the class was. Was it, you know, too basic for you guys? Was it too high class? Do you want me to change something and stuff? Okay, so it is yeah. So like I was saying, there are people that I have seen who are doing Twitter threads regularly, and they're tagging us, they're tagging Priyanka, they're tagging Kiran, they're tagging Web3 Learn. So we are able to track them. So we will expect more, you know, such feedbacks. We would expect more such. I am really sort of words these days. We would expect more such interactions. Yes, that's good for you, because obviously we, you know, want to see you like more involved and all of that stuff. So do tag us and do like attempt those Twitter threads and upload your code on GitHub and stuff. So it's like motivation for all of us also to put more and more effort. Web3 Learn team is doing great when it comes to bringing more mentors on board and more companies on board and stuff. So yeah, I think if yeah, you can submit the assignments on Sunday if you're stuck with college projects. I think it's okay. It's totally okay. Okay, that's it then. Kiran or Priyanka, if you guys have anything to say, you guys can.